I remember the cold that night, not the kind of cold you can fix with an extra layer, but the kind that crawls into your bones and settles in your chest, making every breath feel like you're swallowing tiny shards of glass. The rest stop sat along a mountain pass in Colorado, washed in a sickly yellow light that made everything look slightly unreal. Snow hammered the windows in heavy bursts. Wind screamed through the cracks like something sharp being dragged across metal. I stood hunched beside the vending machine, my hands shaking so hard I could barely keep hold of a hot cup of coffee. I didn't have my phone, I didn't have my wallet, I didn't have my driver's license, no cards, no cash. I dug through my coat pocket and found nothing but a crumpled tissue and a few coins that clinked onto the counter, small useless sounds that somehow felt like me. Less than 10 minutes earlier, I had been sitting in my own SUV wedged between my mother and my younger brother. I had said one word, no. No, I wasn't sending more money. No, I wasn't paying for one more emergency. No, I wasn't going to keep being a living, breathing ATM for my family. I was 41 years old. I had just crawled out of a divorce that didn't just break a marriage, it sanded down your dignity until you didn't recognize yourself anymore. I had been getting back up slowly, like someone learning to walk again after a bad fall. I went to work, I paid my bills. I learned how to eat dinner without the familiar lump rising in my throat. I learned how to sleep through the night without waking up, panicked in the dark. And yes, I started therapy, because there were nights I lay in a quiet room and thought, I don't even know who my life belongs to anymore. I believed family was supposed to be safe. At the very least, I believed my mother wouldn't do anything cruel. But the moment I said no, she looked at me like I was a stranger. She pressed a hand to her chest, voice trembling like she'd been deeply wounded. "You've changed," she said. "Ever since the divorce, you're not normal anymore." From the back seat, my brother Evan gave this little scoffing laugh. "You always play the victim." I choked on the air, not because the words were new, but because something sharp and clear formed behind them. They didn't care how tired I was. They cared what I could still pay for. I assumed it would be a fight. I assumed we'd cool off. I was still stupid enough to tell myself, it's family. They're just mad. The next morning, my mum borrowed my phone to call the front desk for directions, then didn't give it back. Evan said he'd hold my wallet so I wouldn't lose it. And I, because I've spent my whole life trying to keep the peace, kept talking myself down. It's fine. It's just for a little while. We'll get back to the hotel and they'll hand everything over. I didn't understand that they were stripping me, piece by piece, the way someone quietly drains the oxygen from a room. I went into the restroom at the rest stop for maybe 3 minutes. I washed my hands and looked at myself in the mirror, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, trying to hold herself together the way you try to balance a fragile glass right at the edge of a table. Then I stepped outside. The wind slapped me full in the face, snow stung my cheeks, and my car was gone. I froze for 2 seconds, then ran into the parking lot shouting my mother's name, shouting Evans. No answer. I saw the tire tracks leading away, and then the snowfall swallowed them up fast, like the storm itself was erasing evidence. I went back inside and asked to use a phone. The clerk looked me up and down, no ID, no money, shaking in a blizzard, and that look told me something women over 40 learned the hard way. People believe whichever story sounds more reasonable. If I cried too hard, I was unstable. If I yelled, I was a problem. If I shook, I was the one who couldn't be trusted. So I swallowed my tears and forced my voice to stay even. And right when I felt like my knees might give out, a man I'd never seen before stepped up beside me. He wasn't dressed like some billionaire, just a thick winter coat, boots crusted with snow, and eyes that looked like they'd lived through more storms than I had. He set a cup of hot water in front of me. "Do you have your ID?" he asked. I shook my head. He studied me for a long moment, then leaned in and spoke so softly only I could hear. "You weren't forgotten. You were set up." I didn't even have time to process that before he added, calm as if he were reading a weather report. They're going to say you panicked. They're going to say you're unstable. And somewhere, I'd bet there's paperwork already waiting with your name on it. Then he opened his phone to call for help, and an email notification lit up the screen. I didn't mean to look, but the subject line hit my eyes like a slap. Petition for emergency conservatorship. An emergency conservatorship petition, and the name of the person requesting it was my mother's. I grew up in Ohio in a house that always smelled like chicken soup and bleach. My mother liked things clean. My mother also liked things done her way. My dad died when I was young, and after that my mom became the center of our whole family universe. She used to say, "Without me, nobody in this house survives." And somehow, we believed her. I did. I was the oldest daughter. I was raised to be the responsible one. That usually meant I was the one who swallowed things. I gave my brother the bigger piece. I gave my mum the quieter version of myself. I even gave up the right to be sad. I remember failing an important test once. I sat on the back steps, crying quietly. My mum walked past and didn't hug me. She just said, "Don't be dramatic. This house has bigger problems than your grades." But Evan, my little brother, was different. Evan only had to sigh and my mum came running. If Evan messed up, my mum had a reason. Bad friends, a cruel job market, life being unfair. If I messed up, it was always because I made bad choices. When I went to college, I worked nights at a diner. I sent money home when I could. My mum called me a good daughter, and that praise, rare as it was, felt like candy. It made me warm. It made me addicted to being seen as good. Then I got married. My husband, Mark, was a quiet kind of decent. He didn't yell, he worked hard, but he didn't understand the leash my mother had wrapped around my throat. In the early years, every time my mum called, I jumped. Mark would ask, "Can it wait until tomorrow?" And I'd shake my head. My mum needs me. Mark didn't fight me, but I saw the tiredness in his eyes. When Evan lost his job for the third time, my mum called, "Help your brother, he's depressed." I sent money. When Evan wrecked his car, my mum said, "He didn't mean it." I paid for repairs. When my mum said the roof needed replacing, I swiped my card. Every time I helped, she softened just enough to tell me, "You're such a good girl." I lived on those words, and then my marriage cracked, not because of cheating, not because of some dramatic betrayal, but because of exhaustion. I was exhausted from always running. Mark was exhausted from always living in the shadow of a woman who wasn't even in our home. I remember one night when Mark said, "I don't want to compete with your mum for you, but I can't live like this forever." I sat there with my hands on the table, fingers curled like they wanted to disappear. After the divorce, I lived alone in a small condo. For a while, I woke up in the middle of the night with my heart pounding, not because I was scared of being alone, but because I couldn't blame anyone else anymore. I had to face the question I'd avoided my whole life. Am I living my life or somebody else's? That's when I started therapy. My therapist was a woman in her 50s with a gentle voice. She didn't lecture me, she just asked, "Claire, do you realize you've been trying to buy love with sacrifice?" I wanted to argue. I couldn't. Still, I kept sending money to my mum. I kept covering a few bills. I even gave her an authorized card for convenience. She used it like a badge of power. Then, at the start of winter, my mum called again, her voice sweeter than usual. "Claire," she said, "I think you need a change of scenery. Let's all go to Colorado. The snow is beautiful. We can talk. I want you to feel happy again." I hesitated. My therapist had warned me, when someone has controlled you your whole life, they won't like it when you start setting boundaries. I remembered that, but I was tired, I was lonely, and I missed the idea of family, so I agreed. The first day in Colorado, I tried to believe. I took photos with my mum outside a coffee shop. I smiled. Evan smiled too, except his smile didn't reach his eyes. I noticed. I ignored it. That night at dinner, my mum started exactly the way she always did. "Claire, she said. Your brother has an investment opportunity. He just needs a deposit. Can you help him? I looked at Evan. He didn't look back. His fingers tapped his phone like he already knew the answer. What kind of investment? I asked gently. Do you have paperwork? Evan let out a sharp little laugh. You're always auditing. Because I'm the one you call when it blows up, I said. I didn't raise my voice. I just told the truth. My mum slid her phone in front of me, the transfer app already open. Just send it. It's not a big deal. I stared at that screen for a long time, and in that moment I saw my whole life. I hit send to keep peace. I paid to be called good. I sacrificed so nobody would hate me. I'd done it for 40 years. I didn't want to do it anymore. I pushed the phone back. No. My mum froze. Evan smirked. My mum started crying the way I'd watched her cry my entire life, right on cue. I raised you. I sacrificed everything. I listened, and something in me felt worn out, like a soaked winter coat. I took a breath. I know you sacrificed, but I can't keep paying for everything, and starting this month, I'm cancelling the authorised card. The air at the table went hard. My mum wiped her tears and stared at me. Her voice turned cold. You've changed, she said. Since the divorce, you're unstable. That word landed on the table like a knife. I sat there, feeling like she'd stuck a label to my forehead. I didn't realise it was a label meant to destroy me. The next morning, my mum acted like nothing happened. She suggested we go shopping, take a drive, look at the snow. I was surprised and relieved. Part of me was always hoping she'd go back to being my mum. In the hotel room, she said, "Let me borrow your phone to call the front desk for directions." She stepped onto the balcony. I heard her talking quietly. When she came back in, she set my phone face down on the dresser. "I need my phone," I said. She gave me a thin smile. "You always clutch it. Are you addicted? Or are you afraid people will find out what you've been doing?" My stomach tightened. That's how my mum worked. She turned normal needs into evidence of something wrong. I didn't fight. I told myself, it's just for the drive. Downstairs, Evan slapped my shoulder. "Give me your wallet, I'll hold it so you don't lose it. You're always forgetting things." I looked at him. His eyes didn't smile, and I still handed it over. That's what happens when you're trained to keep the peace. We got in the car. The radio warned the storm was getting worse. I drove slowly. My mum sat in the front seat, silent. Evan texted non-stop in the back. The road up the pass looked like a ribbon of ice, dark pine trees on either side, snow thickening. That nameless unease in my chest grew heavier. At the rest stop, my mum said, "Pull over, I need the bathroom." Evan said, "Grab some water while you're in there." I went inside. The warmth fogged my glasses. I used the restroom, washed my hands, and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a woman trying so hard to do everything right, but her eyes were so tired they looked dim. I walked back out. The wind hit me like a slap. Snow stung my face, and the parking lot had an empty space that shouldn't have been empty. My SUV was gone. I froze for 2 seconds. Then I ran into the lot calling my mum's name, calling Evans. No answer. People passed by, busy with their own lives, and nobody owed me anything. I ran back inside and told the clerk, "I've been left here. I don't have my phone or wallet." He looked at me, half pity, half suspicion, and asked, "Are you on something?" I wanted to cry, but I remembered my mum calling me unstable. If I fell apart, her story would win. "I'm not," I said hoarsely. "Please call the police." The word police made my heart race, not because I feared them, because I feared what my mother would say to them. I stood by the vending machines hugging my coffee. I forced myself to breathe. "Stay calm, Claire. Don't give them a picture they can use." And that's when the stranger stepped up beside me. 50s, salt and pepper hair, snow on his boots. He looked at me, not like I was a problem, but like I was a human being about to break. "Are you okay?" he asked. I opened my mouth, but my throat tightened. Finally, I managed, "I've been left here." He nodded like he expected that answer. He set another cup of hot water in front of me. "Do you have any ID?" I shook my head. He glanced out the window at the storm walling everything off. "If you don't get somewhere warm tonight, you're in real danger." I swallowed. "Who are you?" "Robert," he said. "Robert Hale. I own a motel not far from here." I don't know why I trusted him. Maybe because he spoke slowly. Maybe because he didn't ask me if I was crazy. He only asked what I needed to survive. Then he leaned in and spoke softly. "You weren't forgotten. You were set up." My skin went cold. "Set up? How?" He said calmly. "They're going to say you panicked. They're going to say you're unstable. And when the police arrive, you'll be the woman with no ID, no money, shaking in a blizzard. That image is useful in court paperwork." "Paperwork?" I whispered. He opened his phone. "Let me call for help first." And right then, the email notification popped up. Petition for emergency conservatorship. My lungs forgot how to work. Robert stared at the screen, then at me. "I was right," he said quietly. I stammered, "What is that?" "Emergency conservatorship," he replied. "A petition that lets someone manage your finances and make decisions for you if they convince a judge you're not competent." I stood there like my body had turned to stone, and on the email I saw the petitioner's name, Linda Morgan, my mother. The police arrived about 20 minutes later. The officer was a woman named Jenna Ruiz, around my age. Snow dusted her shoulders. Her eyes were sharp but not cruel. "Your name?" she asked. "Claire Morgan." "Tell me what happened," I explained, trying to sound like I was giving a work report. No drama, no extra emotion, but my voice still shook. Jenna asked, "Any medications? Any history of self-harm?" The question wasn't wrong, it was practical, but it still felt like a needle. I swallowed. "I've been in therapy since my divorce. I don't use drugs. I don't self-harm." Jenna studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Therapy doesn't take away your civil rights," she said. "I'm writing this up, and you're not going anywhere alone tonight." I wanted to cry right then. Instead, I nodded and thanked her, holding my tears like they were the last thing still under my control. Robert drove me to his motel. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm. It smelled like wood and coffee. The heater hummed, a steady, gentle sound. He handed me an old spare phone to make calls. I called my best friend Megan back in Ohio. Megan was breathless with anger. "I knew it!" she almost shouted. "Claire, please stop being soft. They're eating you alive." I didn't have the energy to argue. I just said, "Megan, my mum filed for conservatorship." Silence on the line. Then Megan swore under her breath. "Oh my God." Robert handed me his laptop. "You need to read it," he said. I opened the email. I read every line. They called me impulsive. They said I was emotionally unstable after my divorce. They claimed I was paranoid about being exploited because I cancelled my mother's authorized card. They said I was isolating myself. I read it and felt like someone was peeling my skin off in public. At the bottom was a hearing date, only a few days away. So fast, too fast, like this had been prepared long before we ever hit Colorado. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared out at the white world beyond the window. And for the first time that night, I cried. Not loudly, just my shoulders shaking, like I didn't have the strength left to make sound. And while I cried, memories started lining up. Things I'd always called normal. Evan borrowing my car and scratching it, and my mum saying, "He didn't mean it." Evan losing another job, and my mum saying, "Don't pressure him, he's sensitive." Me saying I was exhausted, and my mum saying, "Exhausted from what? You have a job and a home, you're lucky." I'd swallowed those words like rocks for years, and now the rocks had become a wall. Robert knocked gently and slid a piece of paper across to me with a phone number. "Marianne Cho," he said. "She's a lawyer, she's good, And she hates conservatorship abuse. I stared at the number. My hands trembled. And in that moment, I understood. If I wanted my life to be mine, I had to stop trying to be a good daughter by my mother's definition. Marianne Cho answered the next morning. Her voice was firm and fast, no wasted words. "Claire, listen to me," she said. "Emergency conservatorship is a weapon. It was designed to protect people who truly can't function, but plenty of families use it to control money. Don't treat this like a feelings problem. This is a power problem." I sat in the motel chair, hands wrapped around a mug of tea, feeling like I'd woken up inside a different life. What do I do? First, don't talk to them alone, Marianne said. Second, gather evidence. They took your ID and left you in a blizzard. Third, show competence, your job, income, payment history. I exhaled. But she's my mum. Marianne paused. Her voice softened slightly but stayed steady. I know, and that's exactly why this is dangerous. Judges are wired to trust family. We're going to put the truth in front of the court. Jenna helped get the rest stop security footage. I watched the video, me walking inside. 3 minutes later, my SUV pulling away. No one turning back, no one getting out to look for me, no one asking the clerk for help, just leaving. Watching it, I felt something strange, not just pain, but clarity. Robert gave a statement that I didn't cause a scene, didn't threaten anyone, didn't act out. I was just shaking from cold and fear. The clerk backed that up. Marianne told me to freeze my credit, change every password, notify my bank about possible financial abuse. I did it all, one step at a time, like someone locking every window before another storm. Then we pulled the card statements. The authorized card I'd given my mum had cash withdrawals that didn't make sense, plus a deposit charge that matched the investment she'd asked for at dinner. Except they'd tried to do it before I cut her off, and when the card stopped working, they lost their minds. Marianne looked at the statements and said, "They'll claim you're financially controlling, but the truth is, they're panicking because they lost control of your money." I let out a harsh laugh. "And they call me unstable." Marianne said, "Manipulators label the victim crazy, so the victim starts doubting themselves." That line reminded me of my therapist, who once told me, "You're allowed to set a boundary without explaining yourself into exhaustion." I hadn't known that for 40 years. That afternoon, my mother called my new number. I still don't know how she got it. I answered because part of me, still, wanted her to be my mum. "Claire," she said, voice sweet as honey. "Where are you? You scared me to death." I didn't speak. "I only want what's best for you," she continued. "You're spiraling. You're not okay." That word again, like a hammer. I spoke slowly. "You left me in a blizzard." She paused, then said, "I didn't leave you. I went to get help. You imagined it." I closed my eyes. I heard the wind outside the motel window. I heard the heater. And I heard something else. The absolute certainty in her voice that she could rewrite reality. "You took my phone," I said. "You took my wallet, and then you drove away." Her tone went cold. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. You're embarrassing me." My chest tightened. At 41, that word, embarrassing, still made my body react like I was 12. Then she said it, the sentence that cut cleanest. "If you keep this up, I'll ask the court to step in. I can't watch you destroy yourself." I opened my eyes and stared at the snow outside. I asked, my voice rough, "The petition was already filed, wasn't it?" Silence. That silence was confession. "Why?" I whispered. "Mum, why would you do that?" She started crying, her familiar crying. But this time it didn't soften me. It exhausted me. "Because you won't listen," she sobbed. "Because your brother needs help. Because this family needs you." I heard the word needs and felt something almost laughable rise in my throat. They didn't need me. They needed access. "You don't need me," I said quietly. "You need my card." She screamed, "You're ungrateful." I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I didn't apologize. I sat there with my hand on my chest, heart pounding. And strangely, I didn't collapse. I just felt sad, the kind of sad you feel when you finally bury something that's been half dead for years. On the day of the hearing in Denver, I wore a simple sweater in a neutral color. I didn't do heavy makeup. I wanted to look like exactly who I was. A normal working woman who pays her bills, who can be tired without being incompetent. Marianne walked beside me. Robert came with us. Jenna supported with her report and appeared by video. Across the room, my mother sat with tissues in her hand. She stared at me like I was a stubborn child. Evan sat next to her, bouncing his knee, eyes darting. Their lawyer argued I was emotionally unstable after my divorce, that I isolated myself, that I'd shown unusual financial control, and that cancelling my mum's authorised card was impulsive behaviour. Marianne stood, calm voice, surgical questions. "Ms. Linda," Marianne asked, "you say you're concerned for your daughter. Why did you take her phone and wallet?" My mum blinked. I was holding them for her." "Holding them," Marianne repeated, "and then driving away from a rest stop, leaving her in a blizzard." My mum shook her head. "No, we went to get help." Marianne played the security footage. On screen, my SUV pulled out and drove straight away. No turning back. The room went quiet. Marianne asked, "Where did you go for help? Did you call 911? Did you come back? Did you notify the rest stop staff?" My mum opened her mouth and then closed it. Evan cut in, sharp and angry. "She's dramatic. She always overreacts." Marianne turned to Evan. "Mr. Evan, if she always overreacts, why did you text her before the trip saying you needed a deposit, and if she doesn't help, you're dead?" She held up printed messages. Evan's face flushed. Their lawyer tried again. "Ms. Claire has therapy history. She's prone to panic." Marianne nodded. "Yes, she sought therapy after a divorce. That shows responsibility. It does not show incapacity." Then Marianne said something that made my throat tighten so hard I nearly couldn't breathe. "A person doesn't lose the right to run their own life just because they've been hurt." The judge looked at my mother. "Ms. Linda," he asked bluntly, "did you file the emergency petition before or after you left your daughter at that rest stop?" My mother looked down. Marianne produced the filing record. The petition had been submitted 2 days before our trip. A small sound moved through the room, not shock exactly, more like realization. The judge exhaled slowly. "So this trip, was it really about healing?" My mother didn't answer. Evan suddenly stood up like he couldn't contain himself. "We were trying to help. She doesn't understand. She acts like a victim." The judge banged the gavel for order. I looked at Evan and saw it clearly for the first time. In his eyes, I wasn't his sister. I was a source. And when that source got cut off, they called me crazy. The judge denied the emergency petition, and then he said a sentence I will carry the rest of my life. The documents and conduct here suggest a motive closer to controlling assets than protecting welfare. I didn't win because I was brilliant. I won because the truth finally couldn't be bent anymore. I went back to Ohio a week later. I unlocked my condo, turned on the light, and stood in the living room for a long time. No one calling me ungrateful, no one calling me unstable, just the soft tick of a clock. I expected relief. I didn't get it right away. What I got was a quiet sadness, like snowfall after a storm. Not loud, but heavy. I wasn't sad about money. I kept my home. I kept my accounts. I kept my autonomy. I was sad because I lost something old and deeply rooted. The belief that no matter how bad family gets, they won't abandon you in a blizzard. My mum texted a few times, sometimes angry. "You humiliated me," sometimes soft. "I just want to talk." Evan went silent. Maybe he found someone else to lean on. Maybe he was furious because I stopped being easy to use. I didn't answer right away. I did what Marianne told me, froze my credit, changed passwords, separated accounts, cancelled the authorised card, tightened every financial boundary I should have set years earlier. It sounded cold. But I finally understood. It wasn't coldness. It was a winter coat. I went back to therapy. My therapist asked, "What do you see now?" I sat quietly for a moment and said slowly, "I see that I've been trying to buy love with sacrifice. And when I stopped paying, they called me crazy." My therapist nodded. "And what did you learn?" I looked down at my hands, veins and small calluses, the hands of a grown woman who's lived long enough to understand that real love doesn't require you to disappear. "I learned," I said, "that boundaries aren't cruelty." Robert sent me a card with one line, "A storm doesn't prove you're weak. A storm just shows you who drives away." I read that sentence again and again. Most nights I still think about that rest stop, how hard I tried not to cry because I didn't want to look unstable. I think about the cruel absurdity of it all. A woman can be threatened with losing her rights simply because she's been hurt, and she dares to say no. And I think about the question that chased me through this entire story. Was I wrong for cancelling my mum's card? If you asked me at 30, I probably would have said, maybe I should have been softer. But at 41, after standing in a blizzard while the people I loved drove away, I only have one answer now. Slow, choked, but clear, no. Boundaries aren't ungrateful. Boundaries are how I survived. And if someone out there, especially those of you over 40, who've raised kids, who've sacrificed, who've endured, are being painted as the villain just because you're finally protecting yourself, I want you to hear this. You're not crazy. You're learning how to keep your life.